Julie von Guldenstube sat at her desk, dutifully taking notes as her teacher, Mademoiselle Sagée, moved about the room. It was a quiet afternoon at the elite boarding school, Pensionnat von Neuwelke, and the classroom was still, the air heavy with concentration. But suddenly, Julie's pen stilled as a strange feeling crept over her. She glanced up, and there it was. Her heart skipped a beat. Mademoiselle Sagée stood at the front of the class, her back to the students as she wrote on the blackboard. But to Julie's horror, she wasn't alone. Another figure identical to their teacher appeared at her side, mimicking her movements. The second figure was silent, shadow-like, and yet utterly real. Julie's hands trembled as she exchanged wide-eyed looks with her classmates. She wasn't imagining it. There were two of her, two Mademoiselle Sagées. Frozen in her seat, Julie could only watch as the spectral figure lingered, and a creeping sense of dread filled the room. Join us on Uncanny Alley as we examine the true story of Émilie Sagée and the true story of her doppelganger. Émilie Sagée's story is one of the most chilling, peculiar, and highly witnessed cases of doppelgangers ever recorded. Born in Dijon, France in 1813, Sagée seemed to lead a relatively unremarkable life, at least from the outside. She was a schoolteacher, highly regarded for her professionalism, intelligence, and warm personality. But beneath the surface, Émilie Sagée harbored a secret she could neither explain nor control. A secret that would ultimately define her life and leave those around her in fear. It all appeared to start in 1845, when Émilie Sagée accepted a teaching position at the prestigious Pensionnat von Neuwelke, an elite girls' school in Latvia that catered to young women from affluent families. This role seemed like the perfect opportunity for Sagée to establish a successful career. However, she would leave a lasting mark on her students in a way she never intended. Within the serene halls of the school, unsettling and eerie events began to surround her, striking fear into her students and causing an undeniable sense of unease among the faculty. As is often the case with paranormal events, things began subtly. Students would notice flickers of movement in their peripheral vision, only to find an empty hallway when they turned to look. Some felt an eerie sensation, as if an unseen presence was watching them from behind during class. A deep sense of unease hung in the air during Mademoiselle Sagée's lessons, leaving an unshakable feeling of foreboding. Some students claimed to catch sight of her on one side of the school, only to hear others insist they had just seen her on the opposite end. At first, students just assumed one or the other had been mistaken, but over time the reports of Sagée's location were in constant conflict, as if she really was in two places at once. Faculty, sensing the growing unease, brushed off the students' fears, insisting they were merely letting their imaginations spiral out of control. But any semblance of normalcy in Pensionnat von Neuwelke was about to come to an abrupt end. One morning, Mademoiselle Sagée stood at the head of the classroom, teaching as she spoke to the students while writing on the blackboard. But to the children's horror, a ghostly double slowly materialized beside her. As they watched in stunned silence, this spectral figure mirrored Sagée's every movement, a silent mist-like apparition that moved in perfect synchronization with her. Gradually, it seemed to solidify, taking on an almost tangible form that perfectly matched their teacher's appearance. Strangely, Mademoiselle Sagée appeared completely unaware of its presence and continued writing, oblivious to the wide-eyed, terror-stricken students behind her. The incident created an uproar at the school. Upon questioning each of the witnesses separately, the head of the school was satisfied that everyone in the class had indeed seen the second figure, and that they all agreed in their description of its appearance and of its motions. Shortly thereafter, one of the students, Antony de Wrangel, received permission to attend a nearby festival and was approached by Mademoiselle Sagée, who offered to assist her in getting ready. As the teacher fastened her gown from behind, the young lady happened to glance at a nearby mirror. To her horror, she saw two separate Mademoiselle Sagées adjusting her dress. Overcome with panic, de Wrangel fainted. One of the most well-known witnesses to the unsettling events was a young aristocratic student named Julie von Guldenstube. She vividly recounted another incident in which she and 13 other students were seated in the classroom, watching Mademoiselle Sagée go about her usual routine. As Émilie bent over a table to demonstrate a task, the students were startled to see her ghostly double appear beside her. Unlike previous occurrences, this time the apparition didn't mirror Sagée's movements. Instead, it simply stood there, eerily still, as if intently observing her actions. One afternoon, as Mademoiselle Sagée ate in the dining hall with other students and staff, her doppelganger appeared standing behind her. This ghostly figure mirrored Sagée's movements, except it held no utensils and appeared to be eating nothing. Students and servants watched, terrified, as the double moved in eerie synchrony with their teacher. This doppelganger at the dining table incident was repeated in front of witnesses on numerous occasions. In another chilling episode, Émilie was seen gardening outside, tending to flowers. Inside, 42 students were gathered for an embroidery lesson when, without warning, Sagée's double abruptly materialized at the front of the classroom. She, or it, sat motionless in the teacher's chair. While the real Émilie was outside, visible through the window, her eerie twin sat in the classroom as if waiting for something. A few brave students approached the figure, but when they tried to touch it, their hands passed through the form as though it were nothing more than mist or a shadow, although they did say they felt a slight resistance, as if they were touching fine muslin. When the students looked back out at the real Mademoiselle Sagée, she sat in the garden, motionless, as if in a trance. At last the doppelganger gradually disappeared, and the girls then observed that Mademoiselle Sagée resumed gardening, once again with full energy. Asking her about the incident later, Mademoiselle Sagée responded that she hadn't noticed anything amiss, but that she had for a moment wished she was back in the classroom, sitting at her desk. What made these encounters all the more mystifying was the fact that Sagée was entirely unaware of her double's actions, though she often felt drained and lightheaded during these occurrences. Some students speculated that the apparition was an extension of her, some sort of projection of her mind. Others whispered that it was something far darker, an omen, or perhaps a demonic or malevolent force. Students weren't the only witnesses. Émilie's co-workers were equally unnerved. Rumors began to circulate around the school, and Émilie's reputation, once untarnished, now became a subject of fear and gossip. A little research revealed that, by the time she had reached the Latvian school, Émilie Sagée had already been employed by and dismissed from 18 different institutions. Though she was an exceptional teacher, the unsettling presence of her doppelganger made her a figure of fear and curiosity wherever she went, and no prior school seemed willing to tolerate the disruption her spectral double brought to the classroom. But what exactly was this doppelganger? Doppelgangers, in the paranormal field, are said to be harbingers of death, ethereal doubles that appear as an omen or warning. They are often viewed with suspicion and fear, considered to be shadowy replicas of a living person that bring bad luck, misfortune, or even death. There are numerous documented cases in which those reporting seeing their own doppelganger have died soon after. For Émilie Sagée, however, her doppelganger did not seem to predict any immediate danger to her. It simply followed her, an unwelcome companion, unnerving those around her, though it did cause her to become weak and drained when it appeared. In fact, students and staff reported that the more lifelike the doppelganger, the more fatigued Mademoiselle Sagée would become. Some scholars have speculated her case to be a form of bilocation, a rare psychic phenomenon where a person can appear in two places at once. Others suggest it may have been a psychological projection, perhaps a real-world manifestation of stress or fatigue. Whatever the explanation, one thing is certain. Every student, along with every servant and most of the faculty at Pensionnat von Novelke, witnessed it firsthand. The faculty held Mademoiselle Sagée in high regard, and given her reputation as an outstanding teacher, the school was eager to retain her. However, news of the bizarre occurrences began to spread among parents, and by the end of the Christmas holiday, only 12 students returned. Faced with the choice of losing Sagée or risking the school's very existence, they decided to let her go. Despite her kindness and dedication, Émilie's peculiar phenomenon, whether viewed as a gift or a curse, forced her into a life of isolation. Wherever she went, it seemed inevitable that whispers and fear would follow, negatively impacting her career. Eventually, after years of unsettling incidents, Émilie Sagée slipped into relative obscurity, her life forever overshadowed by the enigma of her ghostly double. Even today, over a century later, the story of Émilie Sagée continues to baffle and intrigue. Was she truly haunted by her own double, or was there something more sinister at play? Whatever the truth may be, the mystery of Mademoiselle Sagée remains one of the most unsettling accounts of doppelganger phenomena ever recorded. It leaves us questioning the boundaries between the physical and the ethereal, the known and the unknown. And in the end, perhaps the most chilling part of all is that we may never fully understand what haunted her, or why. So, the next time you find yourself in a dark and quiet room with the unsettling feeling that perhaps you are being watched, pause. Remember Émilie Sagée, the schoolteacher who was never alone, and don't turn to look.